5 years after my wife chose a rich man over me, she walked into a boardroom and found me sitting at the head of the table. At first she smiled, not at me, at the room, the polished table, the leather chairs, the glass walls, overlooking downtown Chicago. She thought she was walking into another meeting for her husband's company. Then she saw the folder in front of me. Then she saw my name on the acquisition papers. Then she realized the man she had left me for no longer owned the company she loved, bragging about. I did. And the look on her face was worth every sleepless night I had survived. But before I tell you what happened in that boardroom, you need to understand what she did to me 5 years earlier. My name is Nathan Cole. Back then I was 33 years old. I was not rich, not even close. I worked as a senior technician for a manufacturing firm outside Chicago. Good job, honest job. But not glamorous. I wore work boots. I came home with grease under my fingernails. I drove a 12-year-old pickup truck with a cracked dashboard. My wife Madison hated that truck. She hated our small house. She hated our cheap furniture. She hated the way I packed lunch instead of eating at restaurants. But when we first got married, she called all of that romantic. She said she loved that I was practical. She said she loved that I worked hard. She said we were building something together. I believed her. That was my first mistake. Madison wanted a different life. I saw it slowly. Then all at once. It started with little comments. Do you have to wear those boots inside? Can't we go somewhere nicer for dinner? Everyone else our age is doing better than this. At first I tried to explain. I told her I was saving. I told her I had a plan. I told her I wanted to start my own industrial automation company one day. Small at first. Custom machinery repair. Process improvement. Factory systems. It was not flashy. But I knew the field. I knew companies wasted millions because their machines were old, slow, and badly maintained. I knew I could help them. Madison smiled when I talked about it. But not with pride. With pity. Like I was a child telling her I wanted to build a spaceship in the backyard. One night, I came home late from work. I had stayed 3 extra hours fixing a conveyor line. My hands hurt. My back hurt. But I still opened my laptop at the kitchen table and worked on my business plan. Madison walked in wearing a black dress I had never seen before. Her makeup was perfect. Her hair was curled. I looked up and said, "You look nice. Going somewhere?" She checked her earrings in the microwave reflection. Dinner with some people from the charity event. I frowned. I thought that was next week. It got moved. I nodded. Okay. Want me to come? She laughed. Not hard. Just enough. No, Nathan. You'd be bored. I looked down at my laptop. What does that mean? It means they're business people, investors, executives. You know. That crowd. That crowd. As if I belonged somewhere beneath it. I said nothing. She kissed the air beside my cheek and left. She came home after midnight smelling like expensive wine. That was the first time I heard the name, Julian Cross. Julian owned Crosstech Industries. At least that was how Madison described him. Rich. Successful, brilliant, connected. She said his name like it opened doors. At first I didn't worry. I trusted my wife. I trusted my marriage. I trusted the woman who had promised to love me when we had nothing. Then Julian started appearing everywhere. Charity events, business lunches, art auctions, fundraisers. Madison always had a reason. He's helping with the nonprofit. He knows people. He wants to mentor me. Mentor. That word still makes me laugh. Because men like Julian do not mentor lonely married women for free. They invest. And they expect a return. The night everything changed happened at a private dinner. Madison begged me to come. Not because she wanted me there. Because she wanted to show people she had a husband. A prop. A background detail. I wore my best suit. It was 4 years old. Too tight in the shoulders. Madison looked me up and down before we left. Maybe keep your jacket on. I asked why. She said. The shirt looks cheap. I should have stayed home, but I went. The restaurant was the kind of place where nobody said prices out loud. Julian was there. Of course he was. Silver hair. Perfect smile. Tailored suit. Watch worth more than my truck. He shook my hand with 2 fingers and said, "So you're Nathan. Not nice to meet you." "Not, I've heard great things." "Just so you're Nathan." I said, "And you're Julian." His smile tightened. Madison laughed too quickly. Dinner was miserable. They talked about real estate, private equity, wine, vacations. I listened. I answered when spoken to. Then someone asked what I did. I said industrial systems technician. Julian tilted his head. So maintenance. I smiled. If something breaks and your business loses $50,000 an hour, people suddenly call it engineering. The table went quiet. Julian laughed. Madison didn't. Later when we got home she exploded. "Why did you have to embarrass me?" I stared at her. "I embarrassed you. You were rude to Julian. He insulted my job." He was joking. "No. He was testing me." She threw her purse onto the couch. "You always do this. You always have to prove you're not insecure." I said, "Maybe because my wife keeps putting me in rooms where people treat me like hired help, She looked at me with disgust. Maybe if you acted like more than hired help they wouldn't. That sentence hit harder than a slap. I stood there in our living room, silent. She kept going. I'm tired, Nathan. I'm tired of pretending this is enough. This life, this house. This endless waiting for you to become someone. I said I am someone. She laughed, cold, cruel. No. Julian is someone. Your potential. Potential. The word sounded like an insult in her mouth. 3 weeks later, I found the messages. Not because I was looking. Because Madison's phone connected to the car Bluetooth while I was driving. A message came through. From Julian. Last night was incredible. You belong in my world, not his. I pulled over. Right there on the shoulder. Cars flying past. Heart pounding. Madison was in the passenger's seat. She saw the message on the dashboard screen. For 1 second she froze. Then she reached for the phone. I locked the doors. Do not touch it, Nathan. How long? She looked out the window. How long? She whispered. 4 months. 4 months. 4 months of charity events. Business lunches. Mentoring. 4 months of me working overtime. While she built a future with another man. I laughed once. Not because it was funny. Because pain sometimes comes out wrong. She said I didn't plan for this. No one ever does. He understands me. I nodded. Rich men usually do. Her face hardened. That's not fair. No. Fair was our marriage. You chose something else. She turned toward me. You don't get it. I want a bigger life. And I was too small. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. The divorce came fast. Madison didn't even pretend she wanted to fix it. She moved into Julian's penthouse 2 days after I confronted her. 2 days. She took clothes, jewelry, the good dishes, half the savings, and one framed photo from our wedding. I still don't know why. Maybe as a souvenir. Maybe as proof that she had escaped something. At mediation she sat beside Julian's lawyer. Not her lawyer. His. That told me everything. She wore a cream coat and diamond earrings. Julian waited outside the building with his black Bentley. When we finished, she stopped near the elevator. I hope you don't hate me. I looked at her. I don't know you well enough anymore. She flinched, then recovered. You'll be okay, Nathan. You're strong. There it was. The final insult dressed as kindness. You're strong. Meaning you can survive what I did to you. Meaning I do not have to feel guilty. I said, enjoy his world. She smiled sadly. I will. 6 months later they were married. The announcement appeared in a business magazine. Julian Cross, CEO of Crosstech Industries, marries Madison Cole, now Madison Cross. There was a photo. Her hand on his chest, his arm around her waist, downtown skyline behind them. She looked happy, expensive, untouchable. I stared at the photo for maybe 30 seconds, then I closed the laptop, opened my business plan, and got back to work. The first year after the divorce almost killed me. I lived in a rented room above a mechanic shop. The heat barely worked. The shower made a screaming sound. When I turned it on, I ate canned soup and peanut butter sandwiches. I sold my truck and bought an older one, worse one, but cheaper. Every dollar went into the business. Tools, software, insurance, licensing, a used van, a second-hand diagnostic system. The company started with one client, a plastics factory whose production line kept failing on night shift. Nobody wanted the contract. Too small, too messy, too much emergency work. I took it. I worked from 6 in the morning until midnight, sometimes later. I slept in the van twice. I fixed machines older than I was. I answered calls at 3 in the morning. I documented everything, every repair, every saved hour, every dollar of downtime avoided. The plant manager noticed. Then he referred me to another facility, then another. By the end of year 1, Cole Industrial Solutions had 5 clients. By year 2 I hired my first employee. His name was Miguel. Former Army mechanic. Brilliant with electrical systems. Terrible with paperwork. I hired him anyway. Then I hired Dana, a controls engineer who had been overlooked at every company she worked for. Then Jerome, a logistics guy who could schedule chaos into order. We were small, but we were good. Very good. We did not sell glamour, we sold results. Factories called when machines failed. We came in, fixed the system, and showed them how to stop losing money. That became our reputation. Fast. Quiet. Reliable. Everything Julian pretended to be. Year 3 changed everything. A regional food manufacturer had a shutdown crisis. Their main packaging line failed. Every hour cost them nearly $80,000. Their usual contractor couldn't solve it. Someone gave them my number. I arrived at midnight. By 6 in the morning we had the line running. By noon I had found the root cause. By Friday they signed a long-term service agreement. That contract paid for our first real office. Nothing fancy. Brick building. Bad carpet. 2 bathrooms. A conference room with chairs that didn't match. I loved every inch of it. Year 4, we expanded into automation upgrades. That was where the money was. Not just fixing broken systems. Improving them. making production faster, safer, more efficient. Factories that ignored me before suddenly returned my calls. Executives who once treated technicians like background noise wanted meetings. I learned fast. I hired smarter people. I listened more than I talked. And I never forgot what it felt like to be dismissed. That became company culture. Respect the person closest to the problem. By year 5, Cole Industrial Solutions had 72 employees, 4 states, multiple major contracts, and enough cash reserves to make my accountant smile for the first time ever. Then Crosstech Industries appeared on my desk, not literally. In a report, one of our advisors flagged them as a distressed acquisition opportunity. I recognized the name immediately: Crosstech, Julian's company, the empire, the world Madison had chosen. I read the report alone in my office. Declining revenue, bloated debt, outdated systems, lawsuits from vendors, a failed expansion, a board losing confidence. And buried deep in the financials was the truth. Julian was not a genius. He was a gambler in a good suit. Crosstech had valuable contracts, skilled workers, strong equipment, but terrible leadership. The company did not need to die. It needed to be taken away from the man killing it. My CFO Dana, now promoted and terrifying in the best way, sat across from me the next morning. She said, "You know the CEO personally?" I said, "Unfortunately." "How personally?" "He married my ex-wife after she left me for him." Dana stared at me, then looked at the report, then back at me. "Please tell me, we are not buying a company for emotional reasons. We're not." "Good." I slid my notes across the table. "We're buying it because it's undervalued, mismanaged, and strategically useful." She read silently. Her eyebrows rose. "This is actually a strong play." "Yes, but emotionally satisfying." "Also yes." The acquisition took 4 months. Quietly. Through holding structures, debt purchases, board negotiations, vendor leverage. I did not call Julian. I did not warn Madison. I did not show up in a dramatic coat and announce revenge. Real power does not need noise, it signs documents. By the time Julian understood what was happening, he had already lost control. We had purchased enough debt, secured enough board support, and negotiated enough creditor pressure that the sale became the only path. The final meeting was scheduled for a Monday morning. Crosstech headquarters. 32nd floor. Downtown Chicago. Julian would be there. His executives would be there. The board would be there. And Madison, according to the attendee list, would be there too. Apparently she had become Director of Donor Relations and Corporate Events, a title that sounded expensive and meant very little. I arrived 10 minutes early. Navy suit, white shirt, no tie. Dana beside me. Our legal team behind us. The Crosstech boardroom was exactly what I expected. Glass. Chrome. Ego. Julian's portrait hung in the lobby. Bigger than necessary. I almost laughed. We took our seats. I sat at the head of the table because the chairman told me to. That mattered. A few board members introduced themselves. Polite. Tense. Everyone knew this was not a partnership. It was a takeover wearing a clean shirt. Then the door opened. Julian walked in first. Still handsome, still polished, but thinner. His smile too tight. His eyes tired. Madison followed him. She wore a deep green dress. Pearl earrings. Perfect hair. For half a second I saw the woman who used to sit beside me in a cheap diner eating fries from my plate. Then I saw the woman who told me I was only potential. She didn't see me at first. She was whispering something to Julian. Then the chairman said, "Julian Madison, thank you for joining us. I believe you know, Mr. Nathan Cole." Madison looked up. Her eyes landed on me. She froze. Julian stopped walking. The room noticed. Of course it did. People always notice when the mask slips. I stood. Julian. He stared at me like his brain refused to accept the image. "Nathan." Madison whispered, "What are you doing here?" I looked at the folder in front of me. "Buying the company." Silence. Beautiful silence. Julian laughed once. Forced. This must be some kind of joke. Dana opened her folder. "It is not." Our attorney passed documents around the table. The chairman cleared his throat. "As discussed, Cole Industrial Holdings has acquired controlling interest through debt conversion and board-approved restructuring." Julian's face reddened. "You approved this without telling me." One board member said, "You were informed of the restructuring process." Not that he was behind it. The chairman looked tired. "Your approval was not required at this stage." Madison was still staring at me. Not blinking, I sat down. "So, shall we begin?" The meeting lasted 90 minutes. Julian fought at first, then argued, then threatened, then pleaded. Not openly. Men like him do not beg with words. They beg with phrases like strategic continuity and public perception. He said removing him would destabilize the company. Dana showed 3 years of declining performance. He said vendors still trusted him. Our attorney presented unpaid invoices. He said employees respected him. A board member coughed. Nobody defended him. Madison sat silently for most of it. Then near the end she spoke. "This company is Julian's life. I turned to her. No. It's hundreds of employees' lives. No. Julian just treated it like his wallet. Her face flushed. Julian snapped, "Don't speak to my wife that way." I looked at him. Then at her. "Funny. You had no problem speaking about me when I was her husband." The room went still. Julian's jaw tightened. Madison looked down. I leaned back. "But this is not personal. That would be unprofessional." Dana's mouth twitched. "Barely." The final vote was unanimous. Julian was removed as CEO. He would remain temporarily as an advisor during transition, with no operational authority. Madison's department would be dissolved. Her position terminated. Effective immediately. That part was not revenge. Corporate events were one of the first waste lines we cut. But I will not pretend the timing was not satisfying. After the meeting, people filed out quietly. Julian stormed out first. 2 board members followed him. Dana stayed behind to speak with legal. Madison remained seated. Hands folded. Face pale. When the room emptied, she looked at me. "Nathan." I gathered my papers. She stood. "Please." There it was. The word she never used when she left. "Please." I looked at her. "What?" "I didn't know it would be you." "I'm sure you didn't." She swallowed. "Lim. Did you do this because of me?" "No." She looked hurt. Then confused. I said, "You're not that important to my business decisions." That landed harder than anger would have. She blinked fast. "I deserve that." "Probably. I was cruel to you." "Yes. I was wrong." "Yes." She gave a broken little laugh. "You don't make this easy." I looked around the boardroom. "Neither did you." She stepped closer. "I thought Julian had everything." "I know. I thought he was the life I wanted." "I know. I thought you would always be stuck." There it was. Honest at last. I nodded. "So did he." Tears filled her eyes. "I watched your company grow. After a while. I saw articles. Interviews. I wanted to reach out. Why didn't you?" "Pride." I nodded. "That sounds like you." She wiped a tear. "Julian changed after we got married. No, Madison. You just got close enough to see him clearly." She flinched. "I know that now. And now you want what?" She looked at me. Really looked. Not at the suit. Not at the company. Me. "I don't know." I believed her. That was the saddest part. She had chased a world so hard that when it collapsed, she had no idea who she was without it. But that was not my problem anymore. Julian came back into the room. His tie was loosened. His face was red. "Madison, let's go." She didn't move. He looked at me. "This isn't over." I smiled. "It is for you." He pointed a finger at me. "You think buying my debt makes you better than me?" "No." I picked up my folder. "Building something without betraying people does." His face twisted. For a second I thought he might swing at me. Security appeared at the door. Not by accident. Dana was very good at planning. Julian looked at them. Then at Madison. Then walked out. Madison stayed. That told me their marriage was already dead. She whispered, "I'm sorry." This time it sounded real. But real does not mean useful. I said, "I hope you figure things out." Her face changed. She remembered. Those were almost the same words she had said to me outside the courthouse. Back then, she had said them from beside a Bentley. I said them from the head of the table. She closed her eyes. "I understand." I left the room. No speech. No dramatic ending. Just footsteps on marble. Outside, Dana walked beside me. After a few seconds, she said, "That was colder than I expected." I said I was trying to be polite. "You were terrifyingly polite." "Good." She smiled. "Congratulations. You now own the company of the man who stole your wife." I looked out at the city through the glass elevator. "No." She looked at me. "I own a company he almost destroyed. That's different." The transition took 6 months. Hard months. Crosstech was worse inside than the reports showed. Outdated systems. Angry employees. Broken vendor relationships. Managers promoted for loyalty instead of competence. Julian had run the place like a kingdom. We rebuilt it like a business. Some people had to go. Many stayed. Good people. Tired people. People who had been carrying bad leadership on their backs for years. I spent days walking the production floor, talking to technicians. Listening. Actually listening. One older machinist named Ray told me, "First time a CEO came down here without cameras." I said, "Cameras slow me down." He laughed. Then told me everything that was broken. He was right about most of it. Within a year, Crosstech stabilized. Within 18 months it became profitable again. Not because I was a genius. Because I respected the people Julian ignored. As for Julian, he tried to sue. Failed. Tried to start a new company. Failed. Tried to blame the board publicly. That backfired. Reputation is a funny thing. It protects you until it doesn't. Madison disappeared for a while. Then one afternoon I received a letter. Actual paper. No email. No text. No social media. Just a letter forwarded through my office. I almost threw it away. Then I opened it. "Nathan, I know I have no right to write to you. I am not asking for money. I am not asking for a job. I am not asking for forgiveness. I just want to say what I should have said years ago. I was ashamed of the life we had because I was shallow enough to measure love by appearances. You worked hard. You were loyal. You were building something real. And I mocked you because I could not see value unless it came dressed as wealth. Julian gave me the world I thought I wanted. It was empty. You were not small. I was. I am sorry. Madison. I read it twice, then folded it. Put it back in the envelope. I did not respond. Some apologies are better left unanswered. Not because they are worthless. Because answering would reopen a door I had spent years learning how to close. 2 years after the acquisition, we held a company event at the renovated Crosstech facility. New name. Cole Systems Group. New culture. New leadership. The old portrait of Julian was gone. In its place was a wall of employee photos. Technicians. Engineers. Operators. Dispatchers. People who actually made the company work. Ray the machinist stood beside me during the tour. He pointed at the wall and said, "Better decoration." I laughed. Much better. That night I drove home late. My house was quiet. Not a mansion. Not a penthouse. A comfortable house with warm lights and a workbench in the garage. I still liked building things with my hands. I parked my truck. A good truck now. Still practical. Still mean. I sat in the driveway for a minute before going inside. And I thought about Madison. Not with anger. Not with longing. Just memory. I thought about the night she said Julian was someone and I was only potential. She was half right. I was potential. But potential is not nothing. Potential is a seed. A blueprint. A machine before power reaches it. The mistake is thinking unfinished means worthless. She chose a rich man over me. Then she learned I had bought his company. But the real victory was not watching her face in that boardroom. It was not removing Julian. It was not signing the acquisition papers. The real victory was becoming a man who no longer needed either of them to admit they were wrong. I already knew. Every payroll signed. Every factory repaired. Every employee who got to keep their job because we fixed what Julian broke. That was proof. I used to think revenge would feel like fire. Hot, loud, explosive. It doesn't. Real revenge feels like peace. It feels like sitting in a room you earned. Looking at people who underestimated you. And realizing you do not hate them anymore. Because hate is still a connection. And I was free. Madison wanted a bigger life. She got one. So did I. The difference is mine was built on work. Hers was built on image. And when the image cracked, there was nothing underneath. I don't know where she is now. I don't know what happened to Julian. I don't check. I don't ask. I have companies to run, people to lead, machines to fix, and a life that does not require me to prove anything to the woman who once thought I was beneath her. She chose the rich man. I chose the work. 5 years later, only one of those choices still had value.